Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com. Today we're going to make brownies, and this is what they look like. This brownie has a deep chocolate flavor and a texture that's moist, almost cake-like. So the first thing that you will need to do is to preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius. And then you will need an 8-inch square pan, that's 20 centimeters. I like to line the pan with foil, and when you do that, bring it up the sides and a little over, and then that would be like handles, so then we can easily lift our baked brownies out of the pan. And then I like to butter the foil, or you could spray it with one of those nonstick sprays. For buttering, I just melted a little bit of butter, and then I'm using the pastry brush to butter it. What's great about lining your pan with foil is, besides, you can easily take your brownies out of the pan, it keeps your pan nice and clean, so no cleanup. Always good. So now, brownies are so easy to make. It's a one bowl. You don't need any mixer for this. So you will need a saucepan of simmering water, because the first thing we're going to do is melt our chocolate. So you will need a heat-proof bowl. I like to use stainless steel. And you will need 5 ounces, which is 140 grams, of either a semi-sweet or a bittersweet chocolate. So what I like to use typically for my brownies is a chocolate that's somewhere between 55 and say 65% cocoa content. Today I'm actually using one with a 65%. And mine are in discs. If you're using like a chocolate bar, then just coarsely chop that. And then to that I'm going to add a half a cup, 113 grams of butter. And then I did cut it into smaller pieces so it will melt faster. Now I like the unsalted, I like the flavor, and I also, that way I can control the amount of salt in the recipe. But if you have a really favorite salted butter, by all means use that, and then I would just leave out the salt in the recipe. So I'm just going to put that over my saucepan of simmering water and let it melt. Okay, so our chocolate and butter have melted. So I'm just going to take that off the heat, give it a stir. And then, if you touch your chocolate, it should be warm. You don't want it, if it's really hot, then you want to let it cool down to like it's warm. And now, I'm going to switch over. You could use your spatula to mix your brownie batter, but I like to use a wire whisk. So the first thing we're going to add is 1 cup, 200 grams of granulated white sugar. And I'm also going to add 2 tablespoons, 15 grams of unsweetened cocoa powder. And you can use either like the natural, just regular unsweetened, or Dutch processed, either one. And adding a little cocoa powder is going, you're going to get a more complex flavor to your brownie. And then I'm just going to whisk this in. Now at this point, your batter, it's going to be a little grainy from that sugar. Don't worry, it will smooth out. Okay. And next I'm going to add 1 teaspoon, 4 grams of pure vanilla extract. That's for flavoring. So if you don't want a vanilla flavor in your brownies, you can just leave that out. And I'm also adding 1 teaspoon, 4 grams of pure coffee extract. I really, to me, chocolate, coffee, perfect combination there. And I find adding a little bit of this coffee extract, it almost enhances the chocolate flavor. Now you can just leave it out if you prefer not to have that. And just whisk that in. Next, we're going to add 3 large eggs, that's 150 grams. Have your eggs at room temperature. I'm going to add them one at a time. Add one, whisk it in, and the next one, the next one. And this is where our batter is going to smooth out and become really nice and shiny and smooth. And the next one. And you will notice as you're whisking, it's going to become a little harder. Our arm's going to get a bit of a workout. Could you use a hand mixer? Yes, you could, but I like making it by hand. Oh yeah, there it is. If you can see, it's really glossy, shine nice and smooth. And I can smell that chocolate. So now I'm going to actually switch over to my spatula. We are going to add some flour. So in a small bowl, I have 3/4 of a cup, which is 95 grams of all-purpose flour. You may know that as plain flour. I'm going to add just 1/4 teaspoon, 1 gram of salt. Like I said, if you use salted butter, you could just leave out that salt. And I'm also going to add, to give us like triple chocolate, 3/4 of a cup, 125 grams of chocolate chips. I'm using a bittersweet chocolate chip. It's about, I think it's around 65% cocoa content. You could use a semi-sweet. I mean, you could use a white chocolate, milk chocolate. And if you can also just leave out the chocolate chips or substitute with some chopped nuts. Kind of customize it to your liking. But you know, I kind of like the chocolate chips because it adds a little bit of crunch. So I like that. But if you want like a smooth textured brownie, then just leave them out. So I'm just going to stir this in, and then we are done. So anytime you have a chocolate craving, make yourself these brownies, because in no time at all, you'll have them in the oven, and before you know it, you'll be eating one. And they freeze really well. So that looks good. So now, I'm just going to pour that into our pan. Try to get it all. Okay. And then you could use the back of a spoon, or I'm using an offset spatula. Just get that, smooth it out, get in the corners. Looks good. And then you could just, I often just give my pan a shake, kind of levels it out for it. Okay. Now, everyone's oven is a little different, but what's important is we do not want to overbake our brownies, because then they'll be kind of dry, and nobody likes a dry brownie. So I'm going to say about 25 minutes. But, you know, I would say check it maybe 22 minutes just to, you know, see if your oven's running a little hot. And what you want, the brownies will be set on top. And when you take a toothpick and insert it into the center, you don't want it to come out clean. You want it to come out with kind of, it's a little bit of moist crumbs clinging to the toothpick. So I'm going to say about 25 minutes. So our brownies are done. As you can see, they almost form like a crust on the top. And this is kind of what your toothpick looks like, if you can see that. There is a little batter on there. So now put your pan on a wire rack, and then we're just going to let them cool down to room temperature, When we come back, we will try one. So now we're ready to cut our brownies. So just peel back the foil on the sides, and then with the sharp knife, you can just cut them as large or as small as you like. And if you're going to cut, as you can see, my knife is quite full of brownie. So I just wipe it off and then just cut it this way. I'm just going to cut just a little piece. Here, let me cut one to show you. Isn't that gorgeous? So you got a bit of a top crust to it, and then, oh, doesn't that look moist? But I'll just take a little piece. I need a glass of milk or a cup of coffee to go with this. The outside is nice and crisp. The inside is quite moist, and I would say it's cake-like. You know, we have quite a few eggs in there, and that gives a nice cake-like texture, but really moist. And a deep chocolate flavor. And I like the chocolate chips in there. Right now, these are still a little warm, so the chocolate chips are soft. But once these cool completely down, you will get that crunch when you bite into your brownie. So you can store these at room temperature for a few days. You store them in the refrigerator, probably 4 or 5 days. And then if you store them in the refrigerator, they get more dense and almost more like a fudge-like texture. I like them either way, actually. And you can freeze these if they last that long. So try these. And until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com.